of New York City would be in the top 10 largest cities of America, Brooklyn. That's how many people are there. We do have images from what played out on that train platform. And as we have been all morning, and some of this is fresh to us when it comes, we want to warn our viewers. We will watch this together. Some of it, the images are graphic. You can see people who were hurt, harmed some way. No one's described shooting yet, hearing gunfire, but it would appear that those people had been shot. There is blood in some of these pictures. The fire department, we know, is reporting finding several undetonated devices at the station as well. However, that has been something that they've backed off of now. So until, again, we learn more firm information, those were early reports that do not have any confirmation at this point. Massive police presence in Brooklyn right now along this train subway station. And now we're being told, perhaps throughout, they're looking to protect the entire line. What we do know also is that a gunman fled. He was wearing a backpack, an MTA, so that would make it look like he worked for the train, for the subway system, MTA gear, and a mask of some sort. And with all of the smoke that we could see in those images, perhaps a gas mask. We don't know. A lot of people are wearing masks now. We're still in a pandemic. But what we know about that situation is that he got away. And it would have been a tight squeeze to get out. You're on a train. You are subterranean. There are only a few doors to escape. I heard Bill Hemmer talking about this before. Could you possibly see him, pick him up on a camera someplace? We don't know if police were able to do that. What we do know, though, we've been learning from Brian, and I want to bring him in now. Brian Yennis, live at the scene. Brian, before we get started, I have a quick question for you just to further what I'm telling viewers right now. So reports are that the camera or cameras in the area of where this happened were not activated the way that they should have been, and that a lot of what we're seeing are from cameras a little bit farther away, maybe up higher, and people's cell phones.
Yeah, Harris, I can't verify any of that information about the cameras. I know that Eric Shawn was reporting on reports of that here in local reports about the cameras maybe not operating in subway stations. Frankly, that would not be quite surprising. This is the nation's largest subway system, and some of those cameras would be inoperable. That would not shock me. But let me just reset the scene here for a second. We are on 4th Avenue and 35th Street. This is where emergency personnel have set up here. The train station, the subway station, is directly behind us. And what we know is just a few moments ago, we all received an alert on our phones, an emergency alert that between 20th and 40th Street here in Brooklyn on 5th Avenue, that is the adjacent avenue to us, that they have shut that area down. They say that the area has been stabilized. What's interesting about that is that that is the almost exactly the length of the nearby park, and that is here in Greenwood Heights. There's the Greenwood Park that is right near that 5th Avenue entrance there between 20th and 40th. That is pretty much the exact length of the park. And that's important because we know that the suspect that has been described as a 5'5" black man, about 170 to 180 pounds, is still on the loose. So is there a search in this area? That appears to be the case. And obviously they have stabilized the area here in Brooklyn. We don't know in what direction he went. The police also further say that this man was wearing a gas mask, had some sort of book bag, and was wearing a construction vest. It was not an MTA uniform, but it was a construction vest that was orange. So that is all that we've been told about this particular suspect. We know that a press conference is going to happen at any moment, but we also know that this all started essentially, we were told, at 25th Street, which is one station below here, and then the train pulled up into 36th Street, and that is when you saw people coming out of the train with smoke billowing from inside that train car, people with injuries. And we know that at least 13 people are injured, at least 5 people shot. We know 8 people are in stable condition. So that is the update from what we understand from the victim's perspective. But in terms of where this particular perp went, we have no idea. All we know is that there is currently a lockdown. There was a witness who just spoke to Bill Hemmer and Dana Perino on America's Newsroom, and this is how he described the situation underground at about 8:30 this morning when this happened.
Right, don't move. And then I saw the individual from my video who was laid out in the middle of the platform, bleeding out all over the place. People started rushing towards us, running towards us. One guy was screaming that it's not worth your life to get videos and stuff.
Yeah, so people were running for their lives in the chaos underground right now, Harris, but we expect to get more information from the police. This initially started, Harris, with a phone call to the FDNY at about 8:27 for smoke that was coming out from the train station, and that is when they arrived and they realized that this was much more than just smoke. They saw people, and there's been video of people who were shot in the leg, it appeared, blood on the platform, and people that were injured. So we'll give you an update on those injuries as right now, all we know is that the area between 20th and 40th Street here in Brooklyn is now considered a stabilized area and has been blocked off as the search for this suspect continues and as schools here in the area remain in lockdown. Harris?
Brian, such great information. And I want to just go over a couple of things with you. So first of all, we were waiting to see when they might set up a command center and what a news conference timing might be like. What can you tell us on that front?
Yeah, so they have the reason why you see us kind of in this press mess right now is because they moved all the press over here, and you can see that they've set up a couple of podiums, which is a telltale sign that they are about to start a press conference that hopefully at any moment we'll be able to set up. I would imagine hopefully within the hour.
Perfect. Yeah. It's been 2.5 hours since this incident, and you've had people transplaced and transported and all of that. A lot of questions coming in, as you might imagine. Fear from people who just don't have all of the answers. So the timing of that would be expeditious, we would hope. Brian, you brought up a couple of details, and I want to really give a good point to them because I had said MTA very early on. This suspect looked like he might have worked in construction or maintenance or something down there. And those reports early on were perhaps MTA. What we know is that it's much more generic. And you gave us more details about what the suspect might be wearing, might look like right now. Has there been any indication that they caught him on camera? What is being said about how they're chasing that? And we may have to wait for the news conference to get that. But I thought I'd press in because you had some fresh and very good details.
Yeah, we don't know actually at all in terms of the camera situation. That's what we're going to hopefully hear about right away. In terms of where this investigation is standing right now as to where this suspect may be. We know that subway traffic has stopped. We know about the stabilized area. You can see that the first responders are in a pretty calm posture up here, kind of just waiting at this moment. But in terms of what we can tell you about this suspect, we only know yeah, or where it came from, right. And there's even some, we've been told that it started at 25th Street and moved towards 36. There was one witness who said it was actually a train that was moving towards Manhattan. Remember, there's the north and southbound trains. So that's the kind of information we hope to get soon. But again, we have helicopters in the air. One, at least probably, there's press and NYPD that are in the air in this area. There's a cornered off area of Brooklyn. We know the subway trains are at a standstill, and we know that there is a suspect on the loose. So that is currently the situation we have right now.
All right. And Brian, one more thing. I have a new list of all the nearby businesses, and the closest that we're seeing, there's a New York Mini Mart and Deli, a Sunset Park High School. You've got a Brooklyn church there, Royal Auto Glass. I mean, that area is rich in some residential high-rises where people live, but also just a ton of small businesses near there. Potential witnesses, you would say. What is the activity level along the streets for those businesses? Have they also been closed?
Yeah, those businesses, there's nobody going in and out of those businesses directly at the entrance of the 36th Street station. This is where it really did happen. This is where first responders and people were brought out when that train pulled in to the 36th Street station, and that is why you see this setup over here. But all the way down the block on 4th Avenue, with all you see are first responder vehicles and an entire 4th Avenue just blocked off. There are pedestrians who are standing by and watching, but yeah, there's nobody going in and out of these businesses. This is a very residential area here in Brooklyn. And of course, there are schools nearby. And again, as I mentioned, that park that's nearby as well, which is interesting just because of what I told you about the emergency alert that was sent out that ran up and down 5th Avenue, which is right in front of the entrance to that park.
Yeah, one of the other things that they have just real nearby is the fire department engine 228. You see a fire engine pulling out of there, but it just made me think about it. I've been in this area most recently. Okay, so we know that we are standing by.
Hey,
Brian, you've told us there's a command
Harris?
center. Yes.
Presser at 11:30.
Perfect.
Just so you know, okay?
All right. I was just going to say, I figured you'd be right there for it. We'll come back to you as that happens, Brian. Thank you so very much for the update.
Thank you, Harris.
All right, let's dig deeper.
Hey, all.
Who served in the NYPD intelligence division.
Trying to figure out what's going on because there are talks about bombs and explosives found here and there. That was the initial talk. And I don't hear a lot of that now. There's some video coverage of one of the trains stopped and everybody's rushing out of it. And it's full of smoke. And you can't really tell what's going on, but yet some people were shot in the leg or in the lower extremities. At the same time, people say they didn't hear a thing. They didn't hear any pops or anything like that. So just trying to figure it out, you know. I'm just going to let them just play this coverage.
As is possible. To do that, they're going to be using.
By the way, good morning, everybody.
At the disposal of NYPD Intelligence Division, NYPD precincts, everybody. This is an all hands on deck situation. They're going to be looking to see whatever they can on that footage. Obviously, the initial reports from inside of the subway are that there was an individual with a gas mask on, so that's going to make it much more difficult to get an initial arrest made based upon identifying him, right? It's going to be harder to track him down with the lack of identity, the initial identity that you would have. So now they're probably working backwards from whatever surveillance footage that they have and getting the word out to people in the neighborhood, doing cordon and search. And that first and most important thing, Harris, is to make sure this shooter is taken into custody before he can harm anybody else.
You know, I want to ask you about the smoke because there has been some concern and confusion about what that does at a crime scene for people trying to get away. You know, we had one witness who was talking with America's Newsroom a short time ago who said it didn't smell like electrical smoke. It smelled like something else. It certainly, I would imagine, Buck, would impair your vision, if nothing else, as you're coming off that train. What in the intelligence world does that tell you about this type of a criminal, this type of a crime, that would be involved?
Well, now we start to get toward the possible motive.
Elizabeth Martin Wilhelm. I can dig that.
It would be speculation right now.
I can dig
why
that.
This individual did this. We simply don't have the details to come up with even a good early assessment. However, you can get a sense of whether this falls into a more standard criminal shooting situation, gang shooting, something along those lines, or whether this is ideologically motivated. And because of the pre-planning, the usage of the gas mask, what seems to be the usage of perhaps smoke grenades. I've seen an early reporting, although I'm not sure if that has been verified yet. They may have deployed smoke grenades. Now you're looking at somebody who was ideologically motivated in an act of terror.
Potentially.
So I think we're solid. Yeah, but I think we're leaning in terms of the early indicators toward a possible terror incident here. We don't even know that much yet. We certainly don't know what the motivation was behind it. But so that first phase.
Yeah, there's a lot unknown right now. Like I said, people were saying explosives, and they found explosives, and bomb squads were out trying to see if packages found were something. Some people didn't hear any gunshots or popping sounds. Others did.
Yeah, and that was kind of the point.
Smoke, you know, where's the smoke from? And the perp got away. That's all that they know. That he escaped either down the subway line itself on the tracks, or he blended with the crowd. He had a gas mask on, not a regular, medical mask. He had a full gas mask on. And a safety vest, like one of those that you see there with the X on it. He had some kind of safety vest on.
Oh, absolutely. And it's meant to add to the chaos and to make it harder for individuals to make, when you're sitting far away from something, watching on a screen the aftermath, it's very hard to put yourself in the shoes of somebody who is on their way to work, on their way to see family members. thinking that they're safely on the subway, and all of a sudden there's smoke, you hear shooting, and a panic response is going to set in for a lot of individuals. And that's, it seems, obviously the intention here of using the smoke in this situation, and also attacking people on the subway in general. I mean, you mentioned that I had been assigned to the intelligence division of the NYPD. My unit was very much involved with, along with the FBI and the Joint Terrorism Task Force, Najib al-Azazi case.
So apparently many undetonated devices have been found. I don't know what the status of that yet. Hopefully in about 15 minutes, when they have their press conference, we'll see what's going on.
The daily heart and soul of this city, which has been under, unfortunately, a lot of duress from day-to-day crime now for a while. And so there's already a perception, Harris, that the subway is unsafe. There's violence on the subway. And now adding this to it, a possibly ideologically motivated attack, it seems this individual decided to heighten that sense of fear and to use that to his advantage, possibly in, again, an ideologically motivated attack.
We have William Daley, who is standing by, former FBI investigator. I'm asking my team if I can bring you on together, because this is the kind of thing I want to go to next. Bill, you're with us too? Perfect.
I am.
Bill and Buck, I want to toggle between the two of you on this, and that is, what about the people that we already know about? And you know, the crime has been busting in certain areas of the country. This is one of them in New York City, in the boroughs here, particularly violent crime. So are they looking now, Bill, at like a short list of people that they kind of keep an eye on? Is there an MO that they'd be looking like? Has this person used gas? I mean, excuse me, a gas mask or smoke device before? I mean, what are they looking at in terms of who we already might know about?
Yeah, great question, Harris. And kind of building what Buck was just saying is that, you know, working jointly with the FBI or the other federal agencies as well, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, they do have access to a lot of information that may indicate whether or not they've had individuals that they've been either looking at or come across their radar who present these kinds of demonstrate their physical behavior, either using gas masks or more so concerned about have they acquired any type of gas canisters and those type of things. Again, you know, kind of building what Buck was saying is that this raises the level of sophistication. This is not somebody who I believe just woke up this morning and decided to go do this. This was planned. The equipment was gathered. It was purchased. It was gathered through various sources. You know, at the end of the day, that may be certainly one of the threads that they need to follow if, for example, eyewitnesses or video in and around the area don't produce any particular immediate leads, identification of how those devices were acquired, who bought them, where, when, how, may lead us to the individual behind it. I'd also say, Harris, is another important factor in these kinds of cases where perhaps this is, it could be ideological driven, or it could be there's somebody who feels as though they want their name to go down in glory and infamy, if you will. But it is people around them. So you may have individuals who saw this person either making threats generally or preparing in some way, and we're looking for those people to come forward and help investigators understand who might be behind this.
All right. Now that you said that, I'm going to ask my team to put the tip line up on the screen. And as I talk to Buck Sexton and William Daley, I want people to know that Bill just made a pretty huge solicitation right now, and a reminder to us all that if we see something, to say something. Call that tip line. It's there, 800-577-TIPS. Buck, before I let you guys go, I am curious to know how much in concert the FBI and the NYPD Intel would have worked together. You both have been on each end of the spectrum. Buck, I'll come to you first.
I mean, it's absolutely essential. You know, the FBI brings a level of specific expertise in the realm of counterterrorism, along with a whole range of federal criminal issues that come up in a circumstance like this. NYPD is it's really just a massive entity that can bring a tremendous amount of resources to bear, as well as localization of those resources. So like I said, you have Intel Division, you've got One Police Plaza headquarters, where you're going to have the top brass of the NYPD trying to direct those resources all the way down to the precinct level right now. It could right now, and to the very important point that was just made by my former brother from the FBI, it could very well be that some individual reaches out. It could also be that someone at the precinct level, a patrolman, is the one who sees something amiss or sees something right now that leads to the capture. Because the most imminent, most important thing, we can talk about ideology and possibility of an emotionally disturbed person here who decided to act out in rage, whatever it may be. Most important thing is we find that individual, take him off the street, and make sure there are no more casualties today. And that means all hands on deck. Everybody works together, law enforcement, first responders, and just folks walking the streets right now, keeping their head on a swivel.
Buck Sexton, former NYPD Intelligence Division, thank you so much. We'll keep you close by in case we learn something from this upcoming news conference. We'll pull you back in. Bill Daley, before I let you go.
I like that dude's name, Buck Sexton. Sounds like a porn name, doesn't it?
Still leading this investigation. Does the FBI come in?
Buck Sexton.
How do you work in concert without basically covering the same ground? I mean, we know that there's a 20 block or more across Avenue section that they are calling now an area of incident, so that's possibly a growth of the crime scene as they look for the suspect.
Yeah, very good question, Harrison. In these type of situations where it's evolving, you do need to make sure that you have proper command and control. And in this case, being at this point, we don't have a particular federal violation that the FBI would then kind of take overall control. They would be supporting the NYPD in whatever they need to be able to provide as far as investigative support, whether it's people on the ground to go door to door, or it may be using some of their technology. I mean, somebody like this, perhaps, I'm just saying, perhaps may have used social media in some way that either conveyed some type of a crime like this or aspirations to do it. And so the FBI, with their technical expertise, can scan out there and see if there's any social media postings that may indicate that somebody or person may kind of fit this kind of profile, if you will. So they are providing that supportive role. If at some point it's found that there's a kind of federal line that's crossed, and as Buck suggested before, if there was something that indicated, at this point there's nothing to indicate that it's terrorism, but if it was, then certainly it would fall well in the domain of the Joint Terrorism Task Force and federal violation.
William Daley, formerly with the FBI, working with us this morning, along with Buck Sexton, NYPD Intelligence. It's great to get both your perspectives almost simultaneously. Appreciate it. You mentioned social media. That's where we will also go a little bit later. Bill, thank you very much. So I want to refresh here. We are standing by for what we're told will be an 11:30 a.m. news conference with authorities. We do know that the commissioner, Sewell, will step up possibly as part of that or even before it. So we're just covering it as it happens. We're looking at 11:30 a.m. Eastern as a possibility. Something could happen before that. We'll be all over it. We'll take a quick break right here and come right back to the Faulkner Focus. Stay close.
All right. So what happened? Oops.
With DirecTV Stream, I can get live.
Who knows? Very confusing. People are saying there was only one gunman. Yet a lot of people didn't hear any gunshot to go off at all. But when you see the video, people coming out of that subway train that they keep playing over and over again, there's smoke coming out of it, and there are people that are limping, and then they collapse outside on that platform. And it's been said that they have obvious injuries. They're calling it gunshots. So I don't know. It's, who knows? Just have to see if they have a press conference coming up. I hope it's in 5 minutes if they can get ready for that. And then, there's talk of explosives that are found here and there. Multiple. We had someone watching who was listening to police chatter on the scanner, and then that's now it's full blown tactical and don't understand the lingo, So we'll see what comes out of this, but that's not a good way to start any morning, right? Let alone Tuesday morning, but any morning. That subway train is busy, almost around the clock, but definitely in the morning at rush hour. So I don't know if any confirmed fatalities yet. I was hearing one for sure, but in the recent 10 minutes, I haven't heard of any of that. So And yes, New York is like Chicago with the gun ban, complete gun ban. So, you know, those silly guns, just start going off and attacking people on their own. That's all I'll say about that right now. So, yeah, it is a controlled, it's almost as tightly as Chicago. Yet Chicago's got so much gun crime with the gangs, it's not even funny. So I'll leave some of this play out, and I'll check back in with you in a little bit, but I will leave it right here. Just trying to give some conversation over these commercials. Hey D, yeah, they're saying well, they're not saying a lot. They're just saying 5, 6, maybe 7 people are injured. Some are shot, and they're not saying what the other injuries are. We know that there was a gas mask involved and smoke everywhere. They're finding. They're saying that they are devices that have not been exploded yet, undetonated devices. I mean, they're saying multiple, like 6 or 7 or something like that. So hopefully the police is going to make a statement pretty soon. They say at 10:30 our time, 10:30 Central Time. So that's pretty soon. We'll see what happens. Just something, I don't know, something shady about, and it's a lot of craziness going on. So it's possible they just don't know anything yet, right? So we'll see when they come back from a break and see if we've got whatever the update is, any news at all. And I think we should be back right after this. I hate commercials sometimes. I don't know. You guys keep throwing conspiracy theories out there. One of them was good, take away attention from the Hunter Biden situation and the laptop. And I can see that happening. Here we go.
Shooting in Brooklyn, New York. It happened close to 3 hours ago now, and we have been waiting to hear the very latest from authorities. The fire department is nearby. They have a new NYPD precinct that's close to where these people got out of the train. I want to bring in Dr. Mark Siegel, professor of medicine at NYU Langone Medical Center and a Fox News contributor. We'll talk as long as we can, Dr. Siegel. 8 of the victims of this were taken to NYU Langone in Brooklyn.
Which is a level 1 trauma center, Harris. What does that mean? That means there's a 25% increased chance of recovery. What does it mean? It means it has all specialties around the clock available for this. Now, I also hear from inside sources at NYU that it's a combination of smoke inhalation and gunshot wounds. Now, how is smoke inhalation treated? Everybody goes on oxygen right away. You look at the airway. How bad are they breathing? What's their oxygen saturation? Do they need to be on a ventilator? Those are the key things in managing smoke inhalation. For gunshot wounds, you try to figure out how far away they were shot from, what the caliber of the weapon is, as you and I were just talking about. That determines a lot. How fast is the bullet traveling? Is it 1,000 feet per second? Is it 2,000 feet per second, which is very rapid? Then you examine the naked body to look for entrance wounds and exit wounds. You try to figure out, are they bleeding? This is how you triage a patient. Are they bleeding? Are they cool, clammy? Are they pale? Because you bleed a lot before you can actually even know you're going into shock. So we triage patients in the emergency room. Those who are most at risk are assessed quickly. You can use x-rays to see the path of the bullet. If you're worried that this is decompensating, you go to the operating room. NYU is reporting that all 8 are stable. Maimonides, which is another level 1 trauma center, has 5 patients, 3 with smoke inhalation, 2 with gunshot wounds. They're not reporting whether the gunshot wound patients are stable or not, but NYU, all 8 are stable, which to me means they're not going to the OR right now.
Oh, right. And, one of the things that you and I were talking about off camera, we'll bring it into this conversation that really matters, is the loss of blood. And we know, unfortunately, from a lot of the video that we've seen today. And now some people may have been run into. There was like almost a trampling to get out of the doors, as we might all imagine, of those very crammed and hard encased subway doors. They don't have any flexibility. So when you hit them, it hurts. And if you're being shoved into that as you try to get off a train, you can get hurt. So we don't know if all of this if all of the blood that we saw on the platform is coming from gunshot wounds. And so what you say is so very important. There will be possibly, but more than likely, other types of injuries. I mean, we're looking now in the bottom right of your screen. That's a lot of people moving. And they have just come through doorways that are not that wide to escape for their lives.
You are so right about this, because fear and panic drives injuries, and it drives falls, and it drives fractures. I'm most worried about, of course, about the gunshot wounds, but the bleeding for the reason you said, that you have to fluid resuscitate anybody that's losing a lot of blood. Now, from a fall, from an injury like that or a fracture, you probably have more time. And that's why I use the word triage. I want the ones who are bleeding to be looked at first. You give them fluid, rapid bore IV fluid, and blood if you can get it quickly enough.
Dr. Siegel, reports that the suspect had on a gas mask. Talk to me about what it does to the lungs to inhale. Let's just say it's the smoke that was set off in some sort of concussive manner. In other words, we don't know all of the materials all of the ingredients for what they may have breathed in. We don't know that yet. It's too early in the investigation. But clearly, there was enough of concern that this person, in order to get out, him or herself, would wear a gas mask.
That is deeply concerning, and you're absolutely right. We don't know what exactly it does to the lungs or the upper airways until we know what the substance is. All of that gets oxygen right away. But if the lungs are swelling or if the airway is swelling.
Yeah, you guys still watching the live feed? I'm told it got cut somewhere. One of them got cut.
But the results are plus minus. So that's not your answer. Give steroids, give oxygen, you're going to be okay. If we think that there's a corrosive material, we have to intubate the patient.
You and I have talked about the total patient. This is not a situation where someone fell down in normal circumstances, trip and fall. This is panic. This is an unimaginable amount of psychological stress. You've been in ER situations. Crime scenes emptying out, bring in a different kind of a patient.
And I do, absolutely.
And that affects what you do and can affect their survival. You and I have spoken about this many times.
I think that fear and panic here is going to be an overriding problem, not just somebody that was, God forbid, shot, but everybody around that's trampled or that falls and then comes rushing into the ER actually interferes with the ER's ability to manage the more acute patients. That's the biggest challenge of all. How do we deal with the panic? How do we deal with someone that hurt their leg versus somebody that has smoke inhalation or was shot? Just because there's about 5 or 6 patients with smoke inhalation so far in the ERs, there may be a lot more that actually had smoke inhalation in this situation where he's wearing a gas mask and they don't even yet know it. And they'll be in the ERs too.
Dr. Siegel, I know that you have been checking your phone here even while we're on the air. You've got sources inside that hospital at NYU Langone in Brooklyn. And you mentioned the other hospital. You have connections there too. We appreciate you coming in, working your sources and telling us what's going on. And certainly we'll keep you close in the loop here if we learn anything from this news conference that would tell us something about the patients that you can speak to, the victims and all of this. So thank you.
Clearly they're very frightened, and clearly they're in the right places. They're in top medical centers, including my own.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Harris.
I want to bring in now Joe Cardinale, retired NYPD.
They say they're getting ready to go live with that press conference. I can see it down there in the corner.
And on the focus, we often will lean on his expertise. Joe, you're with me?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Good morning. We are standing by for a news conference now, and I would love to know from you about the organization to get ready for something like this, the types of things that that police know they have to tell the public at this point. We understand that Commissioner Keyshawn Sewell will be there. We don't know any of the other dignitaries confirmed yet, but this will be a large event. We saw many microphones set up along the lecterns and the dais there. Can you walk us through talking to New York and to the world at this point?
Well, New York is no stranger to incidents like this, and you can expect to hear what they've done so far. I don't think they'll give out any particulars unless, they definitely identify who this person is. They'll give the updates on the crime scene, which will remain, that crime scene will remain active for a long time, right? The people that were taken out of there, they'll be spoken to. They're going to secure any cell phones, anything they have to do. But rest assured, the police commissioner will set, put the people at ease as much as she can without divulging information that the public doesn't have a need to know.
We're watching now. It's up full screen for us, adjusting the microphones and getting ready to begin this. There was an adjacent area, about 20 blocks, so that can be up to 2 miles long and at least a half mile, if not a mile wide, across avenues in Brooklyn, that they sent out wide alerts on all of our phones. Everybody within, I guess, a certain mileage from there would get it, whether you're...
Well, I know one problem was with this facial recognition is that some of the cameras are not working at all. That's one huge problem. And that's why even just to see what he, a semblance of what he looked like running out of a train or down the subway, couldn't do that because the cameras are not working at all. So huge problem. Huge problem.
Well, this is a large crime scene because of the nature, being in the subway. We don't know what stopped this individual got in, what his entrance was. We have to find out what his exit were, and that's where the cameras will come in. So that's why they'll make it as large as they have to, and then make it a little smaller as they go along. But it's better to go with a larger crime scene and then consolidate later on. And once again, they'll be speaking to the victims as well, because they have to see if there is a rhyme or reason to why he chose this particular station, those particular people, or it's just a random act. All right. The fact is, it seems that he was well organized with this and knew exactly what he was doing with the gas mask. And the fact that he caused that panic where the people were trampled, people were shot, people have smoke inhalation, probably accomplished what that person wanted.
Joe, as we watch this scene unfold, I have been telling our viewers about all the many small businesses that are around there. And you say New Yorkers have seen this sort of thing before. We are in a tender spot with crime in New York City and many of our larger cities across the nation. We will not bring politics into this, but what we will bring into it is this community sense of togetherness, yes, but also deep concern. That you have things playing out on the streets night after night that are pretty tough to take. How much does that environment matter in something like this?
The environment for the public always matters, and you have to, everybody should understand that New Yorkers remain vigilant all the time. Since 9/11 and before that, when you're a streetwise person, you know what goes on, you know what doesn't go on. The fact that this person came in as a worker, disguised himself as a worker, and had everything planned that way, you wouldn't really suspect anything until it's actually happening. But when it does occur, a lot of New Yorkers will take out that phone and start filming. A lot of people run naturally, but some people actually are so, into what's going on in the city, they'll actually stand there and they'll take the film, do what they have to do, and then get out of there. But it's just a constant effort between the police department and the public, just to keep them aware, and the public doing the same for the police department. Right? Keeping, like you said, politics out of this. It's keeping New York safe. Right? And everybody has to do their part. And I think a majority of New Yorkers do their part for this.
Joe, what is the course of action right now for the rest of the subway line? Like we were, reporting whether or not they would start to maybe not shut things down, but they'll man those areas along the line as you transport millions of people along the subway line in and out all over the 5 boroughs.
Harris, I just left Penn Station a while ago, and it's, business as usual over there. However, alerts will be sent out. People will be a little on edge, and then the uniform presence, whether it be National Guard or whatever, is always a welcome presence. So I think what's going to happen right now is everybody's going to be on their on their toes a little more right now, just being a little vigilant. The police department will put more presence in the subways. Not necessarily just that line. They'll watch everything else because you don't want to get tunnel vision and just focus on this one line. So really, it's a large city. It's a huge undertaking, but the transit system is protected by the NYPD, and they'll go about doing it. So I'm sure more units will be deployed along the lines where they have to. They'll probably double up, triple up, and just send some people down there to do some presence, to make a presence known in the subway system a little more until we, unravel what this was all about.
All right. Joe Cardinale, I'm just getting some details about more of the victims here. I'm going to pull away, but I certainly appreciate your time and expertise, former lieutenant with the NYPD. You join us at times like these, and I'm really grateful for all of it. We may come back to you as the news warrants. All right. I still have Dr. Mark Siegel, NYU Langone, and also Fox News contributor with me now, and I'm reading through some notes that he just handed me. So I am going to give you the mantle, and the biggest thing I see right now is you're looking at a non-life-threatening for many, if not all, of these injuries, and that would be amazing news. Fill us in.
3 hospitals now in the picture. We talked about 2 before, NYU Langone, Maimonides. Now also New York Presbyterian Methodist has 3 additional people. It's all a combination of injuries from falls, from gunshot wounds.
So that's 16.
That's up to 16.
That's up to 16.
Smoke inhalation, those 3 things. None of these injuries are believed to be life-threatening. That's really, really good.
And as you were talking with people, that also potentially tells us so much.
I just got some copyright violation on my personal page where I was streaming this. So I just submitted a dispute claiming fair use, and we'll see what happens with that.
Well, and that speaks to what you were saying.
But not my other streams.
Some people fell.
We saw some of the extremities from video, and some of them had been digitalized out by us because it's a lot of blood. But go ahead.
Some were trying to escape. Some fell trying to escape. There is the issue of the smoke canisters that were in the subway. Some had the smoke inhalation, but none of them to the extent so far where it's believed that have to go to the OR or be in a life-threatening condition.
So is it normal in this sense? Because we were just saying, learning from you and even some of our law enforcement guests, that you may get victims that will turn around now and go to the hospital. They feel like they're probably, they're in shock. A lot of them too. Have I gotten far enough away from the scene where I can take care of myself in a different way? So the number of victims now may grow a little bit.
I think it's going to grow a lot. And you and I have talked about that a long time, how fear will modulate responses here, Harris. And you're going to see people that maybe even aren't hurt, but think they may be hurt, or they're traumatized, or they have a psychological effect, or maybe they fell and they don't know whether they're hurt. Because we always tell people, if they get injured, just to be on the safe side, get checked out. But emergency rooms in that area definitely going to be swamped with people who were in this accident. And then on top of that, you have the fact that all the subways are closed now. So people, if they panic, there's going to be more injuries from that. So
people are above ground. We are blessed today, and you may think across the country this is not as big of a deal, but we've had a pretty prolonged winter. We'll put it to you that way. It's been very cold and icy and snowy even a week ago. People are above ground, and so they can be together, and that's a positive thing. So if there is somebody injured, we saw it there on the platform. I'm sure we can see it happening above ground too. People are able to help each other and see each other, and the weather allows them to be able to spot somebody who might need their help. Dr. Siegel, I'm going to ask you, please, to keep sitting by with me right now. I've been told we're inside of a 2-minute warning, and I want to check with my team for this news conference. We've been waiting for just a few moments. We do know that they're trying to gather as many officials as they can for all of this, who will be, as far as we know, outside of law enforcement. So you're going to have leadership, so on and so forth. So a lot of questions hopefully can be asked by the now growing amount of reporters in front of this collection of microphones, and that is a good thing. We are learning, though, from our own guests on this show, from law enforcement, from medical experts, that what we saw play out this morning has had some silver linings as far as we know. The darkest of the moment was when this rolled out at 8:30 or so, 8:38 Eastern here on the East Coast. To recap, people started pouring out of a train. Smoke, And they could see that away from the scene. Calls being made, we see smoke. Smoke inside that car that they were in. Gunshots, people shot. And a bloody scene as people tried their hardest to escape through some punishing doors of the subway system. They do not have give. They're pushed into those doors. They're trying to get out. And we have some of that platform video. And I'm going to ask my team to pull that out just real quickly so people can see, if they're just tuning in to the Faulkner Focus, what the morning looked like and how far we've come from that moment, as we are about to get some details now. It's bottom right of your screen. And the earlier pictures that we saw, we had not looked at. So we have been able to treat some of this video with digitalization and blur and some not. Some of it is still graphic. William Daley, former FBI investigator, is back with me now as we await this news conference. And Bill, we're watching simultaneously the movement, the life-grabbing movement off that train as people tried to get away from a shooter.
Yeah, Harris, it's certainly compelling and also certainly disturbing for anybody who is going about their daily, everyday activities and heading to work, heading to school, and to be confronted with this. And kind of adding to what Dr. Siegel was saying is that, you know, the trauma of that, initially people just, it's the fight or flight. Many people just, you know, fled the scene, but later on will say, gee, was I exposed to something? Did I have trouble breathing, or maybe concerned that perhaps what they inhaled was toxic in some way, and will go to the hospital to try to get some, you know, some support, some analysis, and that will also help drive further witnesses to come forward and have the police speak with them. So it's a very tragic thing. I think, you know, both you and I, we know the area. I was there not too recently in that general area. You know, it's a strong community, but yet something like this sends shockwaves throughout, not just the city, but throughout the country.
You know, I was remarking just moments ago what a beautiful day it is. And what that means is you have that many more witnesses on the streets of New York City, because if you've ever been in a place where they will say something when they see something, this is it. I mean, people don't miss much here. So I would imagine to try to find somebody, a suspect, and it will be determined by what he or she did as they left that platform. Were they able to change their clothes? Did they whip, you know, were they able to make, do they know where the cameras are? How do you escape that? There's so many of them in the 5 boroughs now, as there are in major cities all around the world. So that person's ability to escape is almost as critical as their ability to lift their game to find someone, because they just have so much help on the streets of New York.
Yeah, that's true. Many big people out there who could have seen which way this person fled, but also talking about that technology, Harris, we're very fortunate over the years. The subway system has added cameras. Unfortunately, we've seen that in other criminal investigations where people jumping turnstiles or have committed a crime and leaving the subway platforms. The big question would be, where did this person enter into the subway system? Perhaps without the gas mask. Certainly entering with a gas mask would have probably, I think, you know, raised a certain amount of eyebrows early on. But this person, and can they pick it up by demeanor? But the person with generally the hair or cap color, whatever they might have been having on their head, other things that would kind of give them an indication as to where this person entered. That could also be a great.
Hey everyone, once again, just waiting for that press conference to start.
2 hours of this investigation.
Ahead of this,
And it looks like it could be starting at any minute right now. Trying to get some answers.
sometimes people will wait until the authorities are gathered on the screen to give their tip line. In all the years that I've been covering scenes like this, and what comes to mind most readily are shootings like school shootings, because they'll be watching, they're watching for authorities, and all of a sudden they'll say, I have something to say. So I want to keep that number up. We also have brand new video from inside the subway car during the shooting. And as we always say, we're watching this with you for the very first time. I have not been told of any graphic nature of this one, but you can imagine what police will have to work with in terms of all of the different vantage points from people with their phones. So this is inside the subway car. You see, oh, did you see that, Doctor?
Yes.
Yeah. Now that appears to be someone who they are giving some aid to, and we don't know if we can see back through that door what that would be for. And we don't want to jump and guess. It could be a trample, a fall, a gunshot. We're not sure. But now we're getting
on the ground there.
Someone's on the ground there. And this is one of the clearer views that we had from that brand new video. And we can roll it again, team, if yes, let's do it again. This is one of the clearer views that we had. Let's listen, there's audio.
Yeah, I heard gunshots.
You heard that rhythmic knocking that you talked about that before.
I'm not sure if those were gunshots or not, but I counted 1, 2, 3.
And very regular.
1, 2, yeah. I'm going to ask the team, Kyle, Rachel, can you re-roll this from the top? Because we didn't have audio the first time, and I want to hear what we heard, please. You heard that too. Here we go. You heard it. It was 6 total. It was a 1 single, then a more systematic 1, 2, 3. Systematic, not meaning anything about the weapon, but just the rapid nature of them, if you will. It was a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, yeah. So that is the first time in the video that we have seen and heard that we have been able to hear something that would sound like a gunshot. We've heard reports of different things, and people hear things differently. There were reports of at least one woman saying it sounded like a higher pitched tick, tick, tock, whatever. But depending on your location, too, it's going to sound different. Now, to a medical professional, you hear it differently, too.
Well, to me, it sounds, if it is a shot, again, we don't know, but it would be a lower caliber weapon. It would be a handgun. It doesn't sound like a high-powered weapon to me.
You said it more eloquently than I do. Thank you.
That's one thing. I also want to comment quickly on something that Bill Daly just said that's really important here, which is, fight or flight is going to lead people to determine later on, Harris, that they got injuries that they didn't even know about. And the smoke inhalation, it can be 2 to 3 days later when you realize that your breathing is off and that you have swelling in the lungs. So this isn't over yet in terms of the injuries. We're going to see more and more injuries.
Well, and part of the thing,
and
too,
fear.
If you hyperventilate when you get scared, that heavy breathing to you may just simply be, as soon as I calm down, this will go away. If it doesn't go away in 36, 48 hours, yeah, it's not panic. You have been exposed to something, is what you're saying. And people will know, they'll hear the reports, so on and so forth.
Exactly.
Joe Cardinale, retired NYP lieutenant. I'm bringing you back in because we have brand new video, and I am not a ballistics expert, but I would like for you to hear this and for you to see this scene. So, Bill, my team is also telling me, and we're very careful about not saying what something is or what something is not. So I also don't want to say it's this, but we do know that people were pounding on the door as well. And so as you listen to that, we're going to have to wait for forensics to tell us what exactly it all was. But there were some concussive sounds. It could have been gunshot. It could have been a pounding on the door. One of the things that Dr. Siegel and I noticed is that it was rhythmic was the better word than systemic. That's the word I was looking for. It was rhythmic. What's your thought on it, Joe?
I can't see it, Harris. I can only hear it, and it does sound like there's a rhythmic to it with shots fired. It could be at that time when the shots were fired. They'll determine that later on when they start they're going to link all these videos together. They're going to put the timeline through all the cameras. They'll put a face to something with a mask on, then they'll see at what point he gets rid of it. But the ballistics, you don't know if it was a semi-automatic weapon that's discharging the shells as it's firing, or it's a revolver that, keeps it in there. So it'll have to rely on any ballistics that they find embedded someplace, whether it be in a person or lodged in someplace in the train station. But that's what the crime scene will determine at that point. what we're looking at right now. Are they finding shells? Are they finding this? They'll have to start working on all those angles. But they'll start putting everything together, Harris, the way everything goes in the subway with the cameras, as it's been stated that they have that, and they'll combine it with the videos. And you brought up a very, very good point. People should not wait till later on and say, well, I really don't know if this is important. They should let the police department know what they have and say, listen, this is what I have. How do I get it to you? And the police department is all set up for that right now. They have the hotlines available right this minute. All right, it happens moments afterwards. They wait for people to call. It's not one of those things that they blow off and say, yeah. Everybody saw something. They always take the steps necessary to secure these videos.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I want to remind my team to put up the hotline. And we are a national broadcast and international broadcast. And when something happens in New York City, there are people traveling here from all over the world. And we certainly have seen that both in a very wonderful way with people visiting our city, but also when bad things happen. And we find out that some of the witnesses may have come from near and far. And so we want to give everybody an opportunity to see that tip line. They may know someone who's visiting who may have been in the vicinity of this. So, we want every opportunity to figure out how we all can help. Just listening to Joe just then, talk about come forth as soon as you can. Dr. Siegel, you were nodding immediately because I think you're on the same page, but for different reasons. You're saying, look, even if you feel some shortness of breath, you know enough about the scene right now. You need to get in for medical help as soon as you get that.
Oh, I wish that we got this thing going already.
If you've got a cell phone and you recorded something or you think you saw or you heard something, get in there now. And the less technical.
You guys see that huge gathering on the top right?
You have, I would imagine, talk to those people
camera angle.
Because the memory does something to it as well under the pressure of fear and all.
I wonder if that's this area right here.
People will remember, some people are in shock, as the doctor stated, and things will come back to them later on. So regardless of when you do realize something, if you're out there, you are on the scene, and you actually see what's going on over there, then that's when you report it as it comes along. It might, as the doctor said, it might be days from now. I mean, we all know with the smoke, he's absolutely right. I've experienced it myself. I mean, you experience this days later. You have a burning sensation in your lungs and everything. Some people may say it's nothing, but some people may go.
I guess to a point where they're just trying to fill the time so there's no quiet, and she's just. That's like enough of her speaking. They just need to get to this thing.
It's another piece to the puzzle.
We are rounding up to the top of the hour right now, and we have been waiting for a few minutes for this news conference to begin in Brooklyn, where earlier multiple people shot, and a situation where a lot of them were also harmed by smoke inhalation. We know that smoke devices were set off, devices either singular or plural, but whatever it was enough to affect quite a few people. The suspect who carried out this crime was wearing a gas mask, among other things that make him or her identifiable. Dr. Siegel has strong sources at NYU Langone, because that's where you are. And there's, you said, a very special division of that in Brooklyn dealing with this.
#1 trauma center, and it's ready to handle this around the clock. We're also very skilled in smoke inhalation, and I would urge people out there that were on the scene that think they have smoke inhalation not to wait till the swelling occurs or the pulmonary edema occurs, to get seen earlier. Oxygen is the key treatment, and observation and monitoring for airway problems.
Joe Cardinale, I want to thank you for being with us as we await this news conference. And Dr. Siegel, always for acknowledging the fact that there is much more than the eye can see that can go on with all of this. People will have psychological effects from this for days to come as well. And they must respect those injuries as well. I've heard you say that time.
I love when you
again.
said everyone come together now. Everybody come together in the city.
Absolutely. Well, you see that a lot here in New York. At any minute now, police set up for that news conference. Kaylee.
Yes, we are waiting any minute now. Police set to update us on the Brooklyn subway shooting. This as a manhunt is underway for the suspect after chaos erupted at a subway station during the morning rush hour at about 8:38 a.m. The NYPD, the FBI, and ATF are all on the scene with the details still coming in.
Good morning, everybody.
So far, no motive yet, but sources say the suspect was wearing a construction vest and a gas mask. 5 people have been shot, another 13 injured.
Good morning, everybody, or afternoon on the East Coast.
What you are about to watch is graphic. It captures a horrific scene moments after the attack. You can see bloodied passengers lying on the floor while the air fills with smoke. Multiple smoke devices were found at the scene. And we also just got video from inside the subway car where you can hear some sort of popping sound. And you see at least one of the victims. Brian Yennis is live in Brooklyn. Brian.
Oh, did
Kaylee,
you guys
right
see
now, we
that?
are awaiting that press conference.
The guy who was in between trains in the back over there, he was trying to get in and he was smacking on the door on the glass. Did you see that? I just caught it. He was going like this, and you hear the pop, 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 pop.
A gas mask as well. So you can imagine here that this area has been stabilized
Debunked
as an active
right
crime
here,
scene
live on
from
the air.
20th Street to 40th Street between 3rd and 5th Avenues. That's a 20-block radius here in Brooklyn, New York. This is a massive borough. This, in its own right, would be a top 10 large city here in the United States. So you can we're an ongoing manhunt at the same time that we're about to get more information on the nature of the injuries as well as where this investigation stands. We now know at least 16 people were injured. We know 8 are in stable condition at NYU Langone, which is that level 1 trauma center. We also know 5 additional people are in have non-life threatening injuries at another hospital here in Brooklyn. So you could do the math, that accounts for at least 13 of the 16 that we have been told have been injured. At least 5 people were shot, and from what our understanding is that at about 8:30 a.m. at the heart of rush hour traffic here, that is when the smoke, there was a call for smoke at the 36th Street subway station, which is just right behind where this press conference is going to happen. The FDNY showed up, and that is when they saw people who were shot on the subway platform. And you can see the videos of people making their way panicked outside of the subway car, where it appeared that shooting and that smoke went off in that subway car as people were panically making their way outside. Now, obviously, it took some time.
So the next time they show that video where you hear the gunshots, look way in the back. There's a guy like trying to keep low, seemingly trying to get somebody's attention to open a door for him. He's between the train cars, and he's banging on the door, on the glass, and that's what's making that banging sound that we thought might have been gunshots.
Treated for at least serious injuries from being shot, and we're going to get an update on those numbers as well as whether or not there has been any kind of an arrest made. The big question here is about where did this suspect make his way into the subway station? It is the largest in the nation. Did he enter in Manhattan? He could have entered anywhere along the 5 boroughs, made his way in. Did he put the gas mask on while on the subway car, which would have evaded some of those surveillance cameras? And did a camera catch in which direction this suspect fled? These are some of the questions that we all have, as we now know a 20-block radius has been closed off and 2 avenues. It is important to note that the schools in the area have been put on lockdown and that there is a park right nearby. We've seen some helicopters in the air. Undoubtedly, those are from the press as well as NYPD. But it was interesting to me, at least, that this stabilized area does include the vicinity of a park where I guess if you would be running, who knows? They could have made their way anywhere at this point. But that is the update that we have now. We'll get more soon.
Brian, as you were speaking, we got an update that it is 8 shot, 16 wounded. That's between 3 hospitals that these victims are at. We also knew coming into this that the suspect had a gas mask, was carrying a book bag, was wearing some sort of construction vest. You just updated us at the top of your report a little bit about the suspect's profile. I assume this is a frenzied effort to gather every bit of detail from every witness possible. You said a 20-block kind of roped off area there that they're searching, but what does it look like on the ground as police attempt to gather that information as this area, as time ticks by, could get wider and wider?
Yeah, no doubt this is a coordinated effort by NYPD, ATF, FBI, as well as state police. We have seen all of them And we also just heard that the governor, Kathy Hochul, is here on scene and will probably be speaking at this press conference at any moment. So you can see that this is a coordinated effort by all agencies, federal, state, and local. The NYPD, no doubt, trying to zero in on the location of this suspect at this point, who again is described as a 5'5" black man, about 180 pounds. But the situation up here has seemed calm in terms of it being an HQ.
Thank you very much, Brian. Harris, last hour, I heard your conversation with Dr. Siegel, at least somewhat heartening report that some of these victims, not life-threatening injuries between 3 hospitals. If you could share with us what you learned.
You know, one of the biggest messages I got from Dr. Siegel that I think is really pertinent to say now, because we're 3.5 hours away from when this began, he really wants people who think that they have inhaled something to get to the hospital now, because whatever it is toxic enough that they are going to need some help. And they don't want to wait until they feel like, well, I'm not hyperventilating from fear anymore, but I still can't breathe. Why is that? He doesn't want you to wait until that point. There may be many more people who have smoke inhalation because some sort of device was set off. And the big question is, what were the ingredients of that device? And so that was the sort of the technical side of my conversation with Dr. Siegel, and that's more of an immediate care situation. The gunshot wounds, hopefully those people who suffered them, unfortunately, would have gotten more immediate attention because they wouldn't have been as ambulatory to walk away and run from a scene. But those people who are going to have some problems breathing, he's concerned for them. And so you know, keeping the tip hotline up isn't just about reporting a crime. It's also if you've got a loved one and they're under duress and you don't really know what to do and the hospitals seem to be filling up with these victims, where do I go? Utilize the TIPS hotline. That's really important, particularly for people who might be visiting from other areas. We have a lot of tourism going on. It's still an extended spring break season right now. So if they were anywhere near here, and Brooklyn is a popular destination this time of the year on a beautiful day in the spring. So we just put all that information out. The doctor thought it was really important. And probably also the bottom line here is the list now, the growing list of non-threatening injuries. That is a blessing because we saw quite a bit of blood on the platform, Bill, when you guys were reporting this morning, you and Dana. We didn't know the origin of that blood, and we can't assume all of it is gunshot. If you've ever been pressed through hard subway doors, you'll break a shoulder. I mean, it is, can you imagine being almost trampled out of that situation trying to get away from people and whatever was going on, the cacophony of shots or whatever it was that you heard. There'll be some injuries from that too. So we can't assume everything that we saw was a gunshot, but all of it deserves our attention. So that was his bottom line concern.
It does. And that hotline, 800-7577-TIPS for those who have a tip. Bill, I was so struck by one of the witnesses you had on your show. He talked about exiting a subway car and then trying to find an exit to a subway, but just not seeing someone. I can't imagine. And a man yelling, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. These are not images you expect to see on your morning commute.
What he described, and good afternoon, and good to be with you, ladies. This is a day we did not expect, but this is what we're dealing with at the moment. I think the biggest question is, who is this guy and where is he? Did he act by himself or did he act with others? What was his motivation? What was his state of mind? What we've experienced living in Manhattan ever since COVID sort of went by us is the number of mentally deranged people that are on the streets. And I would dare suggest a lot of us who are sitting here today experience it, perhaps not on a daily basis, but see it several times a week. And that really was not the posture in Manhattan prior to COVID. So what's changed? That's one question out there. The other question is, how does this new administration deal with this? You know, the governor was not elected. You know, she assumed office after Cuomo left. So she is on scene there. The mayor is on the job, I think, 101 days as of today, I believe, right? He's home with COVID at the mansion on the Upper East Side. The new police commissioner was brought in really somewhat under the radar. She worked in Nassau County. She had about 300 officers on her in her department. And she's taken over a police force here with more than 30,000 officers, men and women. So far, she's been impressive publicly, and we'll see her at some point today, and we'll see how she acts with this. But this is a real test for New York leadership, especially when you consider the crime wave that's been happening in major cities all across the country. So who's this person? And where are they?
All right, we're seeing some activity now at the Bank of Microphones, and we're going to take a moment now to just listen in, make sure that we have begun here. This is Brooklyn, New York.
Mayor, First Deputy Mayor Lorraine Grillo, Governor Kathy Hochul, Police Commissioner Keyshawn Sewell.
Here we go.
Outline the events as we know them. Laura Kavanaugh, the First Deputy Commissioner and Acting Fire Commissioner, will walk you through casualties. Jen Oliva from the MTA will give us the status of the system, and then we'll be able to entertain some limited questions. There will be another briefing later this afternoon where we'll be able to update that, and then additional briefings as needed. First Deputy Mayor Lorraine Grillo.
Thank you, John. So from the very minute this incident occurred, the mayor and I have been on the phone monitoring the situation constantly. We have worked with all of our agencies, the FDNY, NYPD, OEM, all of the agencies who have worked really hard together, and we continue to throw all of the city's resources at this.
Okay, just come on. What do you know?
All of the resources available, and we'll work with the Office of Emergency Management for any additional needs. I'm going to ask the Police Commissioner, Keyshawn Sewell, to speak to you and give you an update on the events of today. Thank you.
Good afternoon. We're here to update New Yorkers about an active shooting incident that took place this morning inside the 36th Street subway station on the N line. I want to begin by assuring the public that there are currently no known explosive devices on our subway trains, and this is not being investigated as an act of terrorism at this time. We can also report that although this was a violent incident, reportedly we have no one with life-threatening injuries as a result of this case. This investigation is only hours old, so please note this information is subject to change. Just before 8:24 this morning, as a Manhattan-bound N train waited to enter the 36th Street station, an individual on that train donned what appeared to be a gas mask. He then took a canister out of his bag and opened it. The train at that time began to fill with smoke. He then opened fire, striking multiple people on the subway and in the platform. Again, we will describe him as an individual. He is being reported as a male black, approximately 5 feet 5 inches tall with a heavy build. He was wearing a green construction type vest and a hooded sweatshirt. The color is gray. At this time, we are working with our federal partners where we are asking for the public's help. Anyone with information, videos, or photographs, no matter how insignificant they think it may be, is encouraged to call Crime Stoppers at 800-577-TIPS. All calls are strictly confidential. I'd like to turn it over to the FDNY to give information about the victims. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. The governor would like to speak now. Governor Hochul, my apologies.
That's right. Good afternoon. This morning, ordinary New Yorkers woke up in anticipation of a relatively normal day. They left their homes en route to school, en route to their jobs, and to a normal day, as I mentioned. That sense of tranquility and normalness was disrupted, brutally disrupted, by an individual so cold-hearted and depraved of heart that they had no caring about the individuals that they assaulted as they simply went about their daily lives. This individual is still on the loose. This person is dangerous. They're asking individuals to be very vigilant and alert. You'll get more reports on specificity as the day goes on. So this is an active shooter situation right now in the city of New York. I just got off the phone with the mayor. He's recovering well. He is monitoring. He's actively engaged in the situation. I wanted to let him know that the people of the entire state of New York stand with the people of this city, this community, and we say no more. No more mass shootings. No more disrupting lives. No more creating heartbreak for people just trying to live their lives as normal New Yorkers. It has to end. It ends now. We are sick and tired of reading headlines about crime, whether they're mass shootings, or the loss of a teenage girl, or a 13-year-old.
All right. This is all great. This doesn't help right now. People just want to know what facts are. What do we have? Do we have anything?
This insanity that is seizing our city because we want to get back to normal. It has been a long, hard 2 years. That's what we crave. That sense of stability, and normalcy. And this is what the mayor and I are going to continue to work toward. And I thank the partners, the brave people of the MTA, the first ones who had the sense, the drivers of the train, to leave the station to make sure no more victims could be hurt. The NYPD, FDNY, state police, everyone involved in this has one purpose, and that's to stop the insanity of these crimes. You'll hear now from our fire department. I want to thank them for being there to help us diffuse a volatile situation, but we'll be giving continued reports as this day unfolds. Again, we ask everyone to be careful, be cautious, report what you see. It is likely that someone out there listening to this is going to help us, lead us to that individual. You have a description of what they're wearing. You know the details. But this is the day we pull together as New Yorkers, united in a common purpose to say no more. And that is what I'm going to continue to do as the governor of the state of New York, working with our local partners right here. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. This morning, the FDNY received reports of gunshot victims in the subway. Thanks to their quick response, we were able to treat 16 patients. 10 of those patients are suffering from gunshot wounds at this time, and 5 of them are in critical but stable condition in our local hospitals.
Can you say that again?
Yes, we have 16 total patients. 10 of them are suffering from gunshot wounds, and 5 of them are in critical but stable condition at this time. I'm going to pass it over to the MTA for an update on our subways.
Okay. First of all, we have to thank the NYPD and the FDNY and the whole team who've done so much to protect us and help immediately to recover from this situation. And I also need to acknowledge the MTA workers who had the foresight to immediately move a train that was on the platform, the R train, out of the station so it could carry people to safety. That was smart thinking. Right now, B service is suspended, W service is suspended. The D and the N and the R are running with suspensions and some shuttle buses. And folks should check the website for latest. Obviously, it's a disrupted day, but a lot of the system is in fact running. I just want to say one thing on a personal note, which is on 9/11, I stood on 4th Avenue and watched people, New Yorkers, come back from that tragedy. And I watched New Yorkers help each other and storekeepers walk out and give people water. That was the same thing we saw on the platform today. We saw New Yorkers in a difficult situation, an emergency, helping each other. That's the subway riders. That's who New Yorkers are. Every day they're showing people in the subway, which is our public space, that New Yorkers of all varieties can come together in small spaces and get along and create something bigger. That's what we remember in these emergencies, as well as the tragedy and the thought for the quick recovery of the victims. Is New Yorkers are incredibly resilient, just as they are in every emergency, and we thank them for what they've done, and we thank the governor and the mayor for their leadership in all of our recovery from COVID and from every one of these challenges.
So just to reiterate, we're going to be very limited in what we are able to answer in questions. Just to also underline our partners here, we got Mike Regan. Mike Regan is the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the Joint Terrorism Task Force for the FBI and NYPD. John DeVito from ATF, who's helping us.
Don't get me wrong. I like, you got to say we are New Yorkers. We're help each other, blah, 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 all that stuff. That's great. But I want to hear what actually happened. What are they doing to whatever, real news like that, real crime scene update. She had the best info so far.
Did it all happen in the 36th Street station, or what happened down at 25th Street?
The suspect was in the train car. The shooting began in the train car.
Commissioner, can you give us some more detail exactly what happened in the car? Did the suspect say anything? What type of weapon did he have? And what was going on inside the car as this all happened?
So as I stated before, we're only able to get limited information because it's under investigation. As the train was pulling into the station, the subject put on a gas mask. He then opened a canister that was in his bag, and then the car filled with smoke. After that, he began shooting.
Guys, one time. Commissioner, does this appear to be random? Any idea why this individual did this and did this here?
We do not know the motive at this time, but we're not ruling anything out.
The injuries that are not gunshots, are they shrapnel wounds? What are the other injuries that were not gunshots?
We want the fire department.
There are a variety of other injuries from smoke inhalation to shrapnel to panic from the incident.
When you say shrapnel, what would the shrapnel come from?
It could be from anything. It's still under investigation at this time, so it could be a grazing from a bullet. It could be from the panic after following the incident.
Not from an explosive device.
Not at this time.
Any idea the suspect where they go to the screenshots?
You stay there, you can play events somewhere.
Any idea of whereabouts?
That's subject to investigation. We're endeavoring to determine that right now.
Okay, Josh.
Why were the trains not?
Commissioner, why do you connect this more to the litany of gun violence and not terrorism at this stage? Why rule out terrorism?
I'm not ruling out anything. We're determining what that motive is, and we'll find that out as the investigation
Were
continues.
the victims tend to one particular ethnic group?
No, sir. The victims have a variety.
Is anything else recovered down there?
Hang on. We got time for about two more.
Why were the trains not shut down immediately? And if they were, could it have been easier to catch the suspect?
That's not the case.
How were the cameras working in the subway
I'm
station?
sorry, I didn't hear you.
Were the cameras working in the subway station?
That's under investigation as we speak.
Do you suspect this is an MTA worker, given that they were wearing a construction vest?
We have not
possibly
identified.
another city worker or something?
We have not identified the subject. He was wearing a green type construction.
Governor Hochul, do you want to comment on the arrest of your Lieutenant Governor Brian Benjamin? Did he speak to you this morning? Were you aware? And will you continue to campaign with him?
I'll be happy to report on it later today. We'll have a statement out there. I've not had a chance to speak to him. I was doing media interviews this morning, but this is not the place, but I will be addressing it very shortly. Let's focus on the fact that there are people in a hospital right now fighting for their lives. Those are the people we're thinking about and praying for at this moment.
All right, thank you very much. Listen, we're going to get. Hang on a second. Hang on a second. We're going to get back to you with a time frame update later. The information is developed
All right.
later, and that will not be here.
Not much of an update.
All right. I'm kind of listening there because sometimes they'll give some.
Probably a lot of it we saw in all the coverage. So the one thing I did want to remind you of was look at the video, that latest video that they said where you can hear gunshots. When you watch that again, look in the back, you can see the guy in between the train cars, and he's looking to get in, and he's smacking on the door. And that's what those sounds are. They're not gunshots.
Because boy, we just got a lot of information there, particularly from the NYPD.
All right.
police
I'm going to pull the plug on sucker right now. Thanks for tuning in and checking it out. Keep watching your news to see what's going on. Something else significant comes up, I will surely come back on here and stream it. All right. See you guys later.